Hello, and welcome to PACCIN Chats. I'm Jerry Smith, the Programs Chair at PACCIN, which is the Preparation, Art Handling, and Collections Care Information Network. Today we're hosting a discussion about the state of preparation and collections care work in Europe during this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Our guest is Marc Bongaarts, Head of Collections Care Technicians at the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam. Joining Marc today are Kurt Christian, PACCIN Advisory Chair, and Mark Wamaling, PACCIN Board Chair. For those of you who have not joined us before, PACCIN Chats are an online virtual series of short presentations, interviews, and discussions on all sorts of topics of interest in the PACCIN community. PACCIN Chats are intended to be a way for art preparation, collections care, and fine art services professionals to connect and share knowledge, as well as to be a forum to promote new voices and perspectives within this community. Thanks, Marc, for joining us for this discussion and giving us your perspectives. And I'll go ahead and hand it over to Kurt to begin.
Thanks, Gary. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Yeah, good. I'm really good. It's getting winter here, so a little bit colder, but in generally, I'm doing okay.
One of memories pre-COVID was the 2 or 3 trips I'd made to Amsterdam just before all this happened.
Yeah, it's crazy, eh?
So I guess a good way to start this is like, what is going on there right now? How are things? Are you open? Are you working?
We're open. We're opened like 2 weeks now. We had a second wave of COVID-19 and they closed the museum for 2 more weeks. In the summer, we were closed for 12 weeks, 80 days. For some of you that are watching, that's a short period of time. For us, it was a really long time, and we had to adapt also in how how operations were in that time. But I'm really glad that we're open and we're building exhibitions. We've got like a traveling exhibition also, with all the new COVID protocols in place in the museum, how we work with each other. So it's a time of adaptation, but it's also a good time to look back what you're doing and getting in close what you're doing and how you're doing things, and see how we can cope with a distance of, we've got like a 5-foot distance between 2 persons. At your end, it's 6 foot, so that's more complicated. 5 foot makes things easier to lift heavy things, but generally we're adapting and we're moving on.
Is there any continuity or cohesiveness in how the countries in the European Union are treating this?
Everybody's got their own rules and own things. And generally, it's the same all over the world what we're doing, but some of them are different. And so I think for us, it's all the same for all of us. You are on your end, we are doing it at our end, more or less the same, I think. And how COVID is affecting staff or people around you, for me, it's not so much. I don't know that many people that are infected or had the disease. So it's also a little bit far from me. So we've got all the measurements, what we have to do and what we used to do, wearing masks. But for me, it's also a little bit at a distance, if you know what I'm meaning.
Is the rest of the museum back? I mean, I know in the United States, most museums, administrative and curatorial, and people that can work from home are still doing that. Is that the case there?
Yeah, it's for office people. They're working from home, and that's what we have to do. The hands-on people, they're working at the museum, and we started I think we were back at work in 7 weeks or something like that as staff. We opened after 12 weeks that we were closed, but we're back to work a little bit earlier. So that was also adaptation to how we had to work, and we had to make protocols, how to work with each other, all kinds of protocols, how the routing through the museum is, so on.
Yeah, we shut down, I believe, March 13th, and then we didn't go back to work until July, first part of July. And 2 weeks ago now, we shut down again for 6 weeks until the numbers come down in the city. No, Jerry, at Los Angeles, you've never gone back to work, is that correct?
Our collections department and our preparation staff has gone back to work, but we haven't opened the museum. So we've been working since early July, but the museum has been closed to the public this entire time and remains closed with really no particular, there's no date and time that we'll be opening until our numbers come down.
Oh, wow.
Mark, do you have Mark Wamaling?
Yeah.
Do you have questions?
Oh, sure. Sorry, I didn't hear that. So, Mark, what do you think were like the biggest challenges, overall? I guess we've gone through a period of time now, almost a year now. But, what do you think was the biggest challenges? And, are they still challenges, or was there, good resolutions of them resolved to solve them or whatever?
Yeah, there were some big challenges, and that had to do with protocols and how we had to work. There was like a group of people that were really strict in government protocols, and that wasn't workable for us because it meant that we couldn't lift anything that's heavy or awkward, and you had to do it with each other. That was out of the question. Then there was a discussion in the museum with there's a group of staff that is a spokesperson with management and directors. So they had to negotiate a new protocol, and that's we started working with a new one, and that's not the protocol that's from the government, but it's an adapted protocol because a lot of professional groups of people were allowed to work closer to each other than others here in the Netherlands. For instance, hairdressers could go back to work. So we're like looking at all those groups and saying how we can protect us better than those groups, but if we do that, we can work closer together. So we had a protocol they had to adapt that protocol to the new situation, and that made it really workable. And it had to, because we had a big traveling exhibition of Namjoon Pike, and that had to be packed and shipped. And so in the rules of the government, of the Dutch government, we couldn't do that. And so we were like discussing, how can we make it workable and also pack that exhibition so it can be shipped to Chicago. I think the shipment is it's next month or something, but it's now in outside storage. But we had to prepare, and also we had to unpack new exhibitions because they were in the program, and we couldn't close galleries to say, oh, there's a big heavy piece, we can't pack it with a distance of 5 foot between each other. So we were talking about closing galleries or whatever and all those kind of things. In the end, it worked, and it worked because we're came together and talked about it, but it was a difficult process because there are some people that really are really scared to adapt to a new situation and be not at a distance or wearing a protective gear. So it was a challenge, but it's workable now. And what we also said, that people that weren't comfortable to work closer to each other, they haven't, it wasn't, they didn't, how you call it, we didn't make them have to. So it was really voluntary, and it still is. And we can, all the jobs that we have to do in the galleries, as you know, they're so different. So we can choose on, oh, he's more comfortable to work together, and those are not. So they can do another job, and that's okay. So we're really laid back in the approaching of all the things we have to do.
Yeah, it seems like it's trying to meet everybody's comfort level, and everybody has a different comfort level of protection and threat. But you got to have everybody sign off on the protocols and agree with, doing it. So it sounds like you have some nice flexibility of being able to work with, trying to see who's capable of doing certain things that maybe some other might not feel comfortable with, which, it's a good way to approach it, because it really helps keep things moving forward, because the schedules keep moving forward, right? And that's my other question is, how about the exhibit schedules? Did they change much, or did they pretty much stay online?
Well, on the 13th, that was on a Friday, we were opening that Namjoon Pike exhibition. So, and then it closed. On the opening date, it closed for 4 months. So they had to extend the exhibition. So the schedule is different now. But I think the schedule for this year and next year, it only moved in time, but it isn't changed that much in exhibition and work.
I think museums in Europe are generally funded a lot better than they are in the United States. Have you seen the same kind of numbers, or are you aware of like other countries in Europe as far as people losing their jobs or being furloughed? I mean, it's been really awful here, and at my museum alone. But I think I just read, and we were talking about this, Mark, yesterday, and I couldn't think about it. So Tate announced a pretty big layoff there. So what do you see, like fine art shippers and museums, have they been suffering through this?
I heard in Britain and I don't know why, but it's a little bit a different situation because they're also furloughing people. We don't know that system. It isn't here in the Netherlands. You're working or you're working not. You've got like contracts and they're flexible, or your staff and you've got like a steady contract. The flexible contracts I see there will be terminated at the end of a lot of people. I see like the museum where I work, the Stedelijk, where our funding isn't that much based on visitors, but more on how you call it, subsidized money, or the money that is from like businesses or people that will support a exhibition. And so our funding, because we've got like everybody's got it, a decline of visitors, and but we're not that affected about that, because we aren't a museum that has a lot of visitors. Like our neighbors, the Van Gogh Museum, their visitors plummeted like half or more, and they will suffer more than we are. because of the kind of museum we are.
What about the Reichs? Have they been affected as well?
Yeah, of course, because the Rijksmuseum, that's also a big, they have like a big visitors drop, and I think it's like, yeah, they got like 50 or more % drop in revenue also. So, and that's a big thing for them also. So they have to look what they are doing with their exhibitions and with their program. And they are scaling down. That's what I see. Well, you see
So
that
with the-
all. Oh, sorry about it.
I was going to say, so with exhibitions, loans, I mean, are loans getting obviously complicated because changing dates and so forth, but loans within Europe, has it been working out this year when you had to, either return loans or borrow, having that cooperation between the other institution and whatever companies you're working with to try and get it, from A to B? Was there a lot of challenges in that, or people seem to be working together and kind of get the task done?
Yeah. What I see is that we've got like loans that are on tour and we have to get them back now. Some of those loans are complicated to deinstall. One of my colleagues is traveling next week to Germany. He has to deinstall a big wall-mounted Keith Haring fabric, so he has to do that. He can travel to Germany where the piece is. It's in Essen. He can travel there and be back in 24 hours, so that doesn't affect his traveling to Germany, but his traveling from Germany back to Holland makes him a 10-day quarantine. So those are the challenges that we're dealing with. A lot of the loans that are out there or are going to be shipped now or in a couple of weeks, we're really looking at those if they can travel. And most of them are already like their exhibitions are so far in organizations that we can't cancel anymore. So we're making like videos how to install. We write that down. We've got like people at the other end in the museums that we talk to how to install or what to look for or what you could do. I'm not a big fan of video couriering because I think that's for me. I've got the experience now with video couriering at the install of the Nemjung Pike show, and my opinion is that it is a disturbance instead of a add-on in knowledge, and the disturbance in your process that you've got in the gallery is so big that people are constantly stopping and don't know what to do and trying to work with somebody that's on a screen and can see the whole picture and also the communication between the person on the other end in the gallery through a registrar or somebody else, then to the crew that has to do the work. I don't know, it doesn't work for me that good when a piece is complicated. When it's a painting, it's like, yeah, we do it like that and we can we put it in the frame or in the crate and
Right.
people can watch that. I don't know if that's a bonus for them. I don't think so. I think we're all professionals, and if you're lending your piece, it's in more or less a stable condition you expect. So what can be wrong, go wrong in that process when your loan is to a big like professional organization? So it's challenging. We're learning, and I think that's what we all do in our community, the packing. So it's a challenge, but it's also you have to depend on the other party there, and you have to trust them, and that's what I'm thinking it's better to do than distrust and look on their fingers to see if something
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only done
Gotcha.
one virtual career trip, and it was with an institution where I used to work, and so I knew the people. It was really straightforward painting, but still, like you say, there's distractions in the galleries. It's kind of hard to really see the surface of a painting on a Zoom call, or and also there's still the weird technical glitches that happen in any of these meetings we all have all the time, where all of a sudden the figures freeze, or people cut out.
Yeah, and also sound, and you can't hear them that good, and so people are asking again. So that's all those little disturbances makes it, in my opinion, more riskful than it takes out risk.
A question.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a question bouncing off of that. I've heard a lot of talk ever since the pandemic started, especially in these kind of like if you go to our registrars webinars and things like that, talking about this might be the new way. That this will really cut down, that we won't really need couriers anymore. And there's been a lot of talk about that even at the museum I work at. And yet the feedback, I just was speaking to some of our registrars this last week about how all of these issues you're talking about are very difficult to get around. And so maybe it's not the new way. Have you, how is it in Europe? Do you feel like there's a big push towards maybe eliminating the courier, or eliminating, that, or is everyone realizing that maybe it's a little more difficult than they think?
It depends who you're speaking to. If it's if it's like a registrar or somebody like us, we are talking more about the fragile pieces, or we are talking about maybe shock or vibration, or transportation, but there are also people that are saying, "Oh, that's better and it's cheaper, and that's the new way." I think it makes us think what we're doing, and I think that's always a good thing to do, to see what you're doing, and if your process is still it's still something that's been necessary. I don't think every object has to be couriered. But I think there are some of the objects that are technical, difficult to put together, or are so fragile you have to check it and see what the state of the object is. Or you've got like I'm a big pro for couriering when a piece is flying. So it has to go to an airport and has to be on the platform. What we're looking at now is to see if we can have different couriers on both ends. So we are doing the palletizing here, the transportation to the airport, to palletizing, and then somebody on the other end will be depalletizing and loading in the truck and do the transportation there. And I think that's a good thing to work on and to see which professionals we need for that kind of job. So,
So you're talking about palletizing. You're talking about palletizing to get it ready to be loaded on the plane. So that eliminates some of that work at the airport. Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear for anybody listening later on this. Cutting down on that kind of control at the airport.
Yeah, precisely.
Beforehand.
Yeah, transportation. Those are the areas that are the biggest risk taking, which are great. So you want to be there, and you want to have somebody at the other end that is a professional in depalletizing and do that kind of job. So that can be somebody from the museum that is a preparator. I think that's the person to be there. So
Interesting concept.
yeah, yeah, and maybe, and that's what I was thinking about. There are a lot of professionals that we know that are in our in our network with PACCIN that can be maybe help in some of those situations. Not every museum has staff that is really experienced in working on an airport or so. I was thinking, is that something that PACCIN and we can work together in, and maybe not the professional from that museum, but somebody from our network that can help or assist in those situations.
We at LACMA have a travel ban for all of our employees, so it's been a huge problem for our, obviously courier trips are off, but we've had to go with art handling companies that can travel to bring some of our pieces back. You mentioned that you had some of your technicians travel for an exhibit, but have you noticed, is there also travel bans for many of the museums there, or is that a thing for you, or is it more just that you have to deal with the quarantine time when you come back?
Some museums have a ban, a travel ban. We did in the beginning because nobody knew what COVID-19 was and how it will be, how easy sick you could be. Now we know what COVID is. We are more laid back to see that you can travel, but you have to travel with all precautions. So when we're traveling in Europe, I say better take your car and drive than take a train, or so those are a little bit to reduce risk to be infected. For the rest, it's up to see if somebody can be missed for 10 days, because you also have your own work and your own schedule that you have to do.
Have you had any trouble sourcing PPE like gloves or masks during all this?
Oh yeah. That was all gloves, medical gloves, were going to the hospitals and the nursing homes. Masks, the FFP2 masks that are really helping to shield you. They were also off. You couldn't get them anymore. They also went to all the hospitals. We voluntarily brought our stock that we had to one of the hospitals, and so they could use it. Now gloves are back. We can order them again, and they're plentiful now. The masks are also plentiful, so we can order them also. But normally we're working with like a normal mask that isn't really suitable to protect you to any virus. But it's more for yourself, for that you don't spit on somebody else.
Right. Yeah, we're using either cloth covered or a surgical mask, but when we're within 6 feet of one another or less, we put on a N95, which is a little kind of a step down from an N95, that, higher level of protection.
Yeah.
And we have shields and face shields for, people that are, like you say, some people have a different level of fear about this. So, you want to be able to provide everything you can if possible.
Yeah, that's what we also do. We're providing everything. It's paid for, through the museum. Nobody has to pay for their own protection. We've got it in the galleries. When we're working there, there's a desk where there's boxes of masks and gloves and everything, so that people can get them and protect themselves.
Are there procedures about coming into the museum for staff and for visitors?
Yeah, we've got like limited visitors now in the galleries. We also have a routing done in the old museum, so people are walking one route, so they don't walk into each other. When you have to work as staff, you have to announce that you want to work in the museum, and then management is looking if it's necessary. So that's the procedure that we're working now. We also have online ticketing for public.
Jerry, you have any?
Yeah, I'm just curious, do you have staff coming in, like curatorial staff coming in to view objects into your storage areas? Is that still ongoing? You know, for research and things like that, or it's generally the staff like that stay out?
Yeah, all research is that's stopped. So people that are curators or conservators. Conservators can work because they have to check some of the pieces that came back from loan, or we have to put in our next exhibition. But for the curators aren't allowed to go to the storage and see the objects, and that's difficult for them because sometimes you want to see what you're dealing with.
I've had difficulty with, we have several warehouses with our storage, and the curatorial research is ongoing. So all of a sudden, one day you might have 3 or 4 people showing up, and then that means the collection staff has to find something somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of a hampering to work, but also they're trying to work. So it's like a little bit of a dance. So it's been a difficult sort of thing.
Yeah, our situation is that you have to announce that you're coming, and then they will check if there's enough space to put if there's not too many people already signed in. So we've got in our offsite storage, it's a max of 12 people that can work there, and you have to sign in if you want there, and then they look who is necessarily there and who isn't.
I was talking about your crew. Is the crew divided up into certain teams that always work together, or does your crew kind of mix up depending on what needs to be done week to week?
Yeah. In the protocol, we are talking about teams that work together. In the reality, it's difficult to work like that. Sometimes you have to, I don't know why, but you're working with him or you're working with her, and then maybe you have to work with 3 or 4 people together. So that makes it. But because we're working with a small team anyway, that's not a bigger problem. I'm working in the gallery when we're doing unpacking and installing. We're working with like 10 people max. So groups are automatically made. People that work together, they look for each other and they work together, and normally they already did that.
I know that all the planning and then you do, and all the talk about it, and then the reality is often a little different. And when it came to like everyone was going to have individual tools and all that, I found that we're still very careful about the tools, and we generally have gloves on when we're handling them, but we're not as proprietary, and like you can't touch that drill. It's not as we have been in the beginning.
Yeah, we had like in the beginning we had personal pallet jacks or personal, and that was difficult. And I understand that touching materials isn't that how you call it, infectious. So that's a lesser risk than like breathing and aerosol. So those are the risks. So the science is also changing, and what you can do and what you can't, and so we're adapting.
I guess I'll have like one final question, then leave it to Jerry and Mark. But when I've been talking to friends or colleagues there's always that like piece of me or them that's trying to retain some piece of optimism in all this, and like wondering if there is some silver lining in this, and that, you know, the bloating of the art world or the exhibition demands like will change at all from this. You know, I don't know if that's sustainable. I would like to think that something would change throughout this, but do you see any of that long-term change or silver lining in all this?
I don't know. I think when the vaccination is there, and I think they're already distributing now, so people will put the vaccination in themselves and start going back to normal. And I think it's also important that you have to go back to normal, because that social distancing isn't good for people, and people have to have a meaning for life and have a meaning to do something, and a job is one of your biggest meanings in life for a lot of people, and they're now excluded from it, or working at home and don't have social contacts, and that makes people depressive or sick or not good at all. So I think we're going back to another status in life, and how the world is going to be. There will be some changes. You see that traveling won't be that easy as it was. That people traveled all over the world and had like cheap tickets, and you could travel for like $60 to Spain in a plane, be there in 2 hours time. I think that is ended, and maybe that's for the better, also for the environment. How we are how we are dealing with our in our world with art, and traveling with art, and have all those big exhibitions all over the world. I don't know if that will change. We had like I'll give you an example. We had a loan of a painting of Guston, and that exhibition was postponed. It would travel to Tate and to Houston, Boston, Washington. So that was a big traveling exhibition. They postponed that for 4 years. I don't know if the grounds where they did it on was appropriate, or was how you call it. It was a little bit. There was discussion about it. In America, it was a big discussion. Now I see that exhibition was postponed to 2024, and now it's back to 2022. So there will be big traveling exhibitions in the near future. I see it already in the plans.
But I think you're right. I think the optimism that we can see is, the opportunity to be able to get back to our normal lives and be able to work, but also go to museums, to enjoy art, culture. Definitely.
Yeah, that's it's an important piece for mankind, to look at beautiful things and have like feelings and emotions and those kind of things. And if you cut that out, it's not so good for a lot of people. And that's especially for us in the Western world, where we're not so family oriented, but more people around us that are important. And if you can't see them, it's like, it doesn't work, I think.
Well, definitely we're going to appreciate it more now than ever.
Oh,
right?
yeah. But
So it's going to mean more.
Yeah, but I didn't do this before COVID, all the video callings and things. And that works also a little bit for me, because seeing each other and talking to each other, and with some people I talk more now than I did before COVID, and we do it on video. But it's yeah, it's I think it's also got like plus points to the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jerry, you got anything?
No, I'm just glad to hear we can end on the silver linings of this
Oh yeah.
situation.
You have to.
Well, thank you very much, Mark, for being here with us and sharing your perspective.
Yeah,
Appreciate
I want to say to all the PACCIN people, the whole community, and especially the people that are furloughed or lost their jobs, stay in and all the best to you. I really mean it because yeah, some of my dearest friends that are close around me, especially in the States. They lost their jobs or they're furloughed, and that's difficult, especially now, just when the Christmas is coming and New Year's, and so we have to be like positive and go back to opening up the museums and have the staff in and do the work, and I hope that will be very, very soon. Yeah.
Agreed. Yes, and thank you for that. That's very meaningful. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mark, it was seeing you and great hearing from you, and thank you again.
Yeah, me too. And we have to be in contact with each other and talk to each other, because it's so easy to get closed off to the rest of everything in this situation. It is so very good to hear from you and to see you also.